Welcome to r/DnDStories, where OP can't keep track of his own children. Alright, today's first post. So you want my firstborn? Deal! Good luck collecting. It all started with a single thought. Bards are charisma-based casters. Sorcerers are charisma-based casters. What if someone played a sorcerer like a stereotypical bard? And thus, Wreathless Sangbronze, Dragon Bloodline Elven Sorcerer was born. I, being someone who takes what was to be a joke character up to 11, wrote a multi-page backstory which I printed out and handed to my DM, who is also my brother and knows better than to not read what I have written when it involves D&D and me walking into his room giggling. In the pages were tales of a man born into luxury who fell in love with music. However, he found the process of becoming a bard too difficult and instead leaned on his natural affinity for magic. Still, he liked to style himself as a bard, carried a bouzouki everywhere he went, and insisted on playing whenever he could, while doing his best to live by the D&D equivalent of passionate hugging, candy, and rock and roll. And if you are imagining a young man doing this when I used a random table, I rolled pretty high. I don't remember what the exact age was, but he was well into his second century. So the game starts and the mission is to escort a baker to the big city so he can have an audience with the local noble about his business being eminent domain. I wanted to make sure that I was not actually attached to that, so I made a point that I was not part of the escort. I was tagging along out of town. When asked why I was leaving, my answer was, the blacksmith is about to become a grandfather to a half-elf. I never went so far as to roleplay the seduction because, once again, the DM was my brother, but I would often roll to see if I could find a companion for the night, and often I would. If we stayed anywhere too long, I would start getting antsy and the hugging calls would pile up. I wrote this down and noted a few baby mamas he'd left behind. The DM read it all and approves, mostly because it states that Wreathless had already done a few of the more annoying bard tropes. So after a while, the party runs into a problem. We were on the run, not Wreathless's fault. And the passage we decided to take was being blocked by a Fey noble demanding someone's firstborn. I asked the DM, how strong do I think this guy is? And he said a number well beyond what we could beat. Firstborn? Yes, the firstborn. Does it matter if they are already born? DM says no. I tick out my hand to shake. Deal. The DM looks at me knowing well enough to know that I have something up my sleeve, but knowing it might be good. He rolls to see if he believes me and then shakes my hand. Okay. The party is stunned, but we get through. Glad that worked, I said. Also, glad he didn't try summoning the child then and there. Why? I had my first child with an adult bronze dragon. That Fey is going to have a pain collecting. I did this 2 more times. Not with the eldest. I never cheated with people I traded with. I demand your firstborn. Sorry, already done. Might you be interested in my second? I suppose so. Can I see the contract drawn up? The DM rolls his eyes and writes a quick note. I look it over and sign. All right, I forfeit my claim to the child. Now your end. The kid was now an adult, and I had no legal rights to them or their soul. I demand your firstborn. Sorry, the first and second are already claimed. Might you be interested in the third? How many kids do you have? Gods if I know. All right, third child. Might I see the contract? The DM smiles and writes it up. Makes a note of adding, third youngest currently held parental rights. I signed. I signed my rights, not the mother's. He will have to get her right as well. Finally, a demon appears before me, laughing at how he has heard of Wreathless's shenanigans. I have an ironclad contract for it. I will offer you a ring of 5 wishes if you sign. All right, let me see. I should have known what was to come. My brother really wants to be a lawyer. Out from his bag came a 20-page contract. I asked if I had to decide then or if I could be allowed to read it over, and the demon agreed. I spent the time between sessions reading it, and it was pretty ironclad. Broken down, it said that I would need to hand over my next child, as in the next one I conceived, with the woman who agreed to sign the document as well. A few times I summoned the demon for questions, aka talked to my brother, and we asked out the details. My ahem would not work with anyone who would not sign the contract until I had conceived another child. I briefly thought about some not-so-nice ideas, fetus deletus, but in the end, I held onto the contract until such time as I either thought of a loophole or we were really hurting for a wish spell. Wreathless died soon after, dogpiled by hill giants. And now it's time to carry on with another chapter of the Masks of Destiny. This is Chapter 9, Laribus. As we wake up the next morning and head down to the tavern, Carolus is there waiting for us. He looks at us and gestures to 2 seats next to him. Kalen and I sit without saying anything. Elon walks into the tavern.
Thank you for retrieving the Mask of Abjuration. I will let you keep it for now, as you have already bonded to it, Shiskane. But I need you both to run some errands for me before we can look for the next mask, Carolus says, grabbing his drink and taking a sip. I need you both to travel to the port city of Laribus. I need you to give this scroll, he pulls out the scroll from his bag, to an old friend of mine named Pharaoh. He will give you the information you need to find the next mask.
Kalen takes the scroll and starts to open it, only to be stopped by Carolus.
Don't open it.
She closes it and tucks it away. Carolus looks at us both expectantly.
So, what are you waiting for? Go!
We both stumble to our feet in our little rush to get out the door. After we pack up our belongings, we leave King's Reach and head southwest for Laribus. After several weeks along the road, all we had seen were the king's soldiers. We arrive at the port city. Should we find an inn or look for Pharaoh first? I ask Kalen, who is absent-mindedly picking at her staff. She starts,
Let's look for Pharaoh first. It's morning right now, so I'm not very tired.
I nod in agreement, and we are let through the gates of Laribus without any hassle, and we begin our search for Pharaoh, asking around. As we are passing through the marketplace, a sudden gasp and wheeze comes from an old man near the fountain in the middle. We both turn to him. He collapses onto the ground and gasps for breath.
Help! Help me!
Kalen starts running towards him, but I grab her arm and nod in his direction. He is dead. We both notice that everyone is giving the dead man a wide berth, not looking at him. A few people are even plugging their noses. Kalen grabs a passerby's arm and wheels the lady around. She looks shocked and scared.
Why didn't anyone help that man?
But as she turns to walk away haughtily, I grab her arm. She turns around, probably expecting it to be Kalen again. I can tell she has a snarky comment on her tongue, but when she sees a 7-foot-tall snake grabbed her, she freezes up. My friend here asked you a question, I say with clenched teeth.
I'm sorry, but please don't hurt me.
She throws her hands up in front of her face. Answer the question, I say again.
There is a disease spreading through the city. It's extremely deadly.
She runs away. After about 2 hours of asking around the city for Pharaoh, we finally find where he lives. When we round the corner and start heading down the street to the address, we see smoke. We look at each other before running towards the smoke. It's Pharaoh's house. It was burned to the ground. A patrol of the city watch is checking out the area when someone walks up to us.
What is your business here? The man says.
I notice he has rank.
My name is Kangren, and I am the head of the city guard. I repeat, what is your business here?
We're looking for a man named Pharaoh who lived in this house,
Kalen informs Kangren. He laughs.
Well, you're chasing a ghost, because Pharaoh died 2 days ago to the disease that has been ravaging this city.
Sir, we found something, or more like someone, a guard calls out to Kangren from around an alleyway corner.
Excuse me, but I must go attend to important matters.
He jogs away towards the guard. I begin to follow him. When I turn the corner into the alleyway, I see 2 corpses laying on the ground. One is face down. The guard reaches out and slowly turns the body face up. But as he does, it lurches out, grabs his head, and snaps his neck. The other corpse leaps to its feet and clubs another guard with a wooden plank, rendering him unconscious. I unsheathe my longsword and shield from my back and call to Kalen. Before I enter the alleyway, I see her dashing across the ground. I lunge at one of the undead creatures and slice off one of its arms in a clean cut, but then it rakes its unnaturally long fingernails across my breastplate, creating an awful scratching sound. That makes me want to rip my ears off. Kaylin rounds the corner with her staff at the ready and blasts one of the corpses with a spell that sends it flying back into a wall, a burning hole left in its chest. I swing again at the one I'm fighting and cut its head clean off, black blood gushing from the wound like a fountain. It collapses. Kangren looks at us both in shock.
Thank you. Maybe we can help each other after all.
That was r/DnD Stories. Now, I can't guarantee that you'll receive a Mask of Power, but I did get a natural 20 on whether or not you'd hit that subscribe button.